Arabic appears in northern Arabia, written by people who were most likely referred to as Arabs, as Arab, either by themselves or by others, and this language was written in various different scripts in the region, including Safaetic, Hismaic, and even Greek, for example. And sometime after this period, it seems...
Wow, Arabic was written in Greek? What? Now this is mind-blowing to me. Alright, origins of Arabic. Suggestion to me, for me, by me. I'm a bit of a language enthusiast. I love learning about languages and their origins, so I look forward to this.
Arabic is, according to estimates, the 5th most widely spoken language in the world today. It serves as an official language across the Middle East and North Africa, even if it is spoken in a number of different dialects. Arabic also serves as a liturgical language within the religion of Islam, being the language of the Quran and thus imbued with a lot of religious significance. As such, it is directly linked to divine revelation and has a significant role to play in history. Muslims across the world read the Quran in Arabic daily, even if they don't understand the words themselves. It goes without...
So, like, what? How do you read the Quran if you don't understand the words? It's... What? What? Bro, I need somebody to explain that to me in the comments. I'm sorry, that's not... What?
Not saying that Arabic therefore has a lot of legend associated with it, because it is the language of the Quran, God's unmediated speech according to the majority of Muslims. It has almost a divine status. Some Muslims historically have considered Arabic to be the one language with which God communicates with mankind, and that Arabic is the language spoken by the angels in heaven, thus being somehow eternal. But if
I don't really think languages matter to God, to be honest. I mean, that's interesting. That's actually interesting. Like, now that I think about it, I never really asked myself, what languages did people speak in heaven before earth was created? Huh. But I doubt it's Arabic, to be honest. Because, well, I mean, if you do believe in God, there used to be one global language until God had to change that. I don't know. Let's see. I don't want to say nothing yet.
Approach things from a historical and archaeological perspective, looking at material that we can date, study, and scrutinize. What picture emerges then about the origins and development of the Arabic language? Where did it come from? Who spoke it? And what can that tell us about the ancient world?
This is a long intro. I hope it's not copyrighted. If it's copyrighted, oh my gosh. Rest in peace.
Arabic is a Semitic language. This means that it is closely related to other languages in that family, including Hebrew, Aramaic, and Syriac, and Egyptian, for example. And anyone who speaks these languages will know how many similarities and points of overlap there can be between them. Just look at a word like salam and shalom in Arabic and Hebrew, for example, both meaning peace. So we know that Arabic comes from the Semitic family of languages and that it developed alongside other languages in that category. But where does Arabic in particular come from? Well, this is a pretty difficult question to answer because languages are always changing and evolving. Now, I am not a linguist, and so I am venturing somewhat outside of my field of knowledge here, more so than I usually am. So even more so in this case than in my other videos, I highly suggest and recommend that you check out the literature and the sources that I will leave in the description for a more proper run through, proper studies in this field by actual experts. Many have tried to explain the origins of the Arabic language. There have been many mythical accounts. For example, in Ibn al-Kalbi, the writer of the Kitab al-Asnam, or Book of Idols, who we talked about in the episode about pre-Islamic Arabia, he writes that it was the Amaliq, giants who came from Babylon, who first spoke Arabic and took it with them to Arabia. Putting aside these mythical accounts, one very pervasive theory and widely accepted idea is that Arabic originates in southern Arabia and around modern-day Yemen, and that it later from that spread northward across the peninsula. But in fact, recent revolutionary scholarship has suggested that this is actually false. Indeed, it seems that the situation was instead reversed. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. And
yeah, that's what I imagine coming into this video. I imagine that it would start from the northern Arabia, because Mesopotamia is the cradle of human civilization. So, I mean, Mesopotamia was the spot, right? The most important spot. I'm not even gonna say debatably, like, no, Mesopotamia was the spot for human civilization. I'm pretty sure that's where the freaking wheel was invented too, in Mesopotamia, right? So no, I think anyone who kind of knows their stuff, especially about ancient stuff, you should be able to assume that, yeah, no, it should be northward, then coming downward, because again, like I said before, Southern Arabia is kind of just arid and not really great. You just gotta think about the spots where ancient humans would just, you know, need to live for water, good agriculture, you know, rivers for good trading and whatnot. And that's why Mesopotamia was like the perfect sweet spot, perfect golden spot. And that's why Mesopotamia became like basically the cradle of human civilization. It has a lot of rich history. So yeah, no, I was quite surprised when he was saying southern. I was like, southern? I was like, I can't really imagine that, because who the heck would be living in southern Arabia all those years ago, right? I mean, just think about it, right? All right, let's continue.
Back up a little bit. As I mentioned in the episode about pre-Islamic Arabia and its religious traditions, we are really witnessing a incredibly fruitful and interesting period in the academic study of pre-Islamic Arabia, or ancient Arabia generally. There is huge new finds and discoveries being made all the time, which is giving us new perspectives on this culture. And this material shows that in ancient Arabia there were a whole host of different languages spoken across the Arabian Peninsula. In no way was there a universal Arabic spoken across the region until basically after the arrival of Islam. Indeed,
that's interesting, because with European and Indian languages, we all know that European and Indian languages, they all had one. They came from one ancestor, right? One language, and we now know that language should be what we call that language Indo-European, right? But we don't know much about it, but we all know that there was indeed one language that all these people spoke. That's interesting. I kind of imagine that Arabic, I mean, he did say that Arabic is in the Semitic family, so I'm guessing that Semitic was the proto language that everyone spoke before it started diverge and whatnot. I don't know, I'm actually kind of, it's very, very intriguing. Let's continue, shall we?
The languages that were spoken and written in what is today Yemen was as far removed from modern Arabic as Hebrew is. Not only was there a myriad of different languages spoken, but also a lot of different scripts or alphabets. Some of these alphabets can be read by scholars today, while others remain undeciphered. We have in southern Arabia scripts like Sabaic and Hadramitic, and in northern Arabia there is the Thamudic languages, so Thamudic B, C, etc. And then there's also scripts like Hismaic and Safayitic. And if we look at any of those alphabets, none of them look anything like the Arabic script that we know and love. So this is the first picture we need to have in mind. Ancient Arabia was a multilingual place filled with various languages and scripts in which those languages were expressed. But where is our Arabic then? Did it even exist in the ancient world? Now, some scholars have argued that Arabic as a language really only arrives very shortly before the birth of Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. But this is really only true if we connect the Arabic language itself specifically with the Arabic script. Because indeed, like when we talk about cultures or religions, languages too are always constantly evolving. It's always changing. And if we accept that less narrow view of the Arabic language, things start to open up a little bit more, and we can start to see traces of Arabic further back in history.
Can you tell me again how a
language just arrives out of nowhere, completed, and then just stays that way? Instead, languages are always transforming, reacting to other languages, interacting with neighboring ways, and finding new ways of expression. It would be foolish to expect to find classical Arabic as we know it today back in 500 BC or whatever.
And that's the thing. I'm going to use English as an example here. Why the hell is the quality... But I'm gonna use English as an example whilst I'm changing the quality. Shakespeare. I mean, Shakespeare alone, right? Think about it. I was thinking about that before. I was like, yo, one person could have a freaking whole influence on a language. Like, there are so many English words that freaking Shakespeare, one guy, created that we still use in the English language. That came from nowhere else. Like, they were just uniquely from Shakespeare, right? So, it's like, I mean, maybe Arabic could have had that, right? Arabic could have had like one person who freaking just invented a whole bunch of words and was so influential, because the reason why Shakespeare and his words were so influential that he just made up for plays, literally plays. I think everybody should know who William Shakespeare is, of course. I mean, the dude was just that influential. I mean, he had clout and whatnot, right? That his words just stuck around in English. I don't know. Maybe a lot of these languages had that one person who just invented a whole bunch of words and just gave it that, and that's why we can't really trace it. It's difficult for us to trace it because, again, lost records and all that. All that stuff and whatnot. I mean, just a lot of stuff just gets lost to time, right? But yeah, it is kind of interesting how just that can happen, right? Because I see a lot of people talk about languages and whatnot, and it's like a lot of people tend to overlook that part. Like, people will be like, oh, I'm gonna try and trace this word and try and trace this alphabet, and it's like, you can do that, but it's like you can't do that for every single word, because, again, like, for example, right? Imagine if English became like one of those lost languages, right? And again, we see those words that Shakespeare created, but we don't know Shakespeare created those words and had such an influence on English that we still use a lot of words from him, right? How are you going to trace those words back, right? Because those are technically speaking uniquely English words now that, because no other languages created those words that Shakespeare thought of, right, in his head, right? So, yeah, I mean, just think about that for a second. So, all right, let's continue.
And the same goes for any other language. But as I said, if we accept this broader and more nuanced way of looking at language, the door opens up a little bit more. Because indeed, even as far back as the second half of the first millennium BC, we find a few inscriptions and examples of language expression that does have strong characteristics of Arabic, and which probably is an earlier form of that very language. The difference here is that these examples of Proto-Arabic are not written in the Arabic script, which wasn't invented yet, but in various different alphabets. It is only when we read them out loud, so to say, that we recognize its character as being essentially an Arabic, or close to Arabic.
So basically, it's like how Slavic languages So like for example, you have the Cyrillic alphabet. Some Slavic languages are in the Cyrillic alphabet, and other Slavic languages are not in the Cyrillic alphabet. They're in the Latin alphabet. But Slavic languages had one common ancestor, and they all could have communicated and speak with each other. But some of them took different alphabets and whatnot. Even now today, these Slavic languages. Let's take Russian and Polish. Polish uses Latin alphabet, and Russian uses Cyrillic alphabet, right? There's a lot of words, and you could kind of low-key communicate with Polish people if you know how to speak Russian or vice versa, right? But the alphabets are different, so you won't be able to read, right? Interesting.
Now, interestingly, all of these examples, basically, of the earliest forms or examples of Arabic do not come from southern Arabia, as has been presumed before, but instead all of the examples are from the northernmost part of Arabia, in places like Syria and Jordan. Now, this makes a lot of sense, of course, since Arabic is so closely related to languages like Hebrew and Aramaic, which were languages that were widely spoken in that general region, in the more northern parts of Arabia, the Middle East, and the Levant, and so on. In other words, Arabic is clearly developing at this time in a diverse environment, both culturally, religiously, and linguistically, and it's developing alongside its sister languages like Hebrew and Aramaic, which are very closely related to it. Now,
Hebrew is an extinct language, by the way. Hebrew, after the original Hebrews were expelled from, that land, I don't want to say because YouTube will demonetize this video if they hear that word. Two of my recent videos, actually, that I literally did on Islamic culture or history or something, they were instantly demonetized because YouTube heard me saying Muslim and stuff like that in the transcripts, and it automatically thought, nope, this video isn't safe for advertisers. Then I had a request for someone to manually review my freaking video, and they realized, never mind, oopsies, and I made absolutely no money from that. So that's nice. We all know who the Hebrews are and where they are. And we all know about the modern Hebrew state that is currently in a conflict with specific people in a place that starts with a G and ends with an A and is called Strip. Okay? I'm not going to say it, but yeah. Yeah, the Hebrew language is extinct because the actual Hebrews were expelled, and I'm just saying the Hebrews today, the Hebrew language spoken today, that's just a reconstructed language. That didn't happen with Arabic. Funny enough, so I'm just pointing this out because you'll hear those so-called Hebrews that aren't even indigenous to that place that's currently in a what's going on down there. Don't want to say that state. They'll love to say this is our land, but it's like, no, it's not, and you're not an actual Hebrew because the Hebrews were long gone, and you're not most of the so-called Hebrews. No, pretty much all of them are just descendants of Europeans that are currently inhabiting that land that is currently in a frenzy with another piece of people. I think we all know what's going on over there. That borders Jordan and Egypt and Lebanon and Syria. Don't want to say that name. All right, let's continue. But just pointing that out there. So next time you see a Hebrew person saying this is our land, just bring up the fact that they were gone. The actual Hebrews were gone from that land for so long that their language became extinct. Okay, that the language spoken today isn't even Hebrew; it's just reconstructed. So
this might be a good time to dispel a very common myth that the ancient Arabs were illiterate. Indeed, there are thousands upon thousands of inscriptions from this region that shows us that the Arabs had a very high rate of literacy, especially in the northern parts of Arabia. The scholar of languages Michael MacDonald writes, quote, "Literacy seems to have been extraordinarily widespread, not only among these settled populations, but also among the nomads. Indeed, the scores of thousands of graffiti on the rocks of the Syro-Arabian deserts suggest that it must have been almost universal among the latter. By the Roman period, it is probable that a higher proportion of the population in this region was functionally literate than in any other area of the ancient world."
I would imagine so, because again, ancient Arabia had a reputation. I mean, come on, the Arabic Golden Age, man. Come on now. Islamic Golden Age. Come on, people. I always imagine, because it really and truly it used to be Mesopotamia. That area was the cradle of human civilization. And then, you know, like before Europeans, really and truly, Europe was always behind, like for a long time. But of course that changed. It freaking flip-flop. But no, it was always like, no, I always imagine like the Middle East, ancient Middle East, to always be more civilized. And I might trigger some Europeans by saying this, but ancient Middle East was always more civilized and more developed than Europeans, at least in ancient times. So I don't know who the hell would think that ancient Arabs were illiterate. That sounds uncanny. That's weird. Like, no. how okay, I'm just kind of just surprised. It's kind of like basic common sense. Like, ancient Arabs illiterate? No. I mean Arabs are literally known for their literacy and literature. Like, how could you think that? Like, no way. Like, that has to stem from somewhere, right? That has to freaking come from somewhere. This can just spawn out of thin air. Like, you don't get good scholars and intelligent people. Freaking hell, man. Like, no. So no, of course these people would have to be incredibly literate for, you know, the future generation that would make the Islamic Golden Age to even come about, right? So it's funny enough, because I actually had a comment on my I think it's one of my Islamic Golden Age videos. It's from like some European guy. He was like, basically said, the stuff from the Arab Golden Age was already invented by Europeans, but the Arabs just went and just took the ideas from Europeans. But I took that comment with a grain of salt.
We have a few examples of Arabic or Proto-Arabic from very early on, so close to 1000 BC, but it's really only when we get much closer to the turn of that millennium, around year 1 basically, that we start to see a real abundance of examples of Arabic. Especially in the period between the 2nd century BC to around the 4th century AD, there are thousands and thousands of inscriptions in northern Arabia that contain early forms and examples of the Arabic language. Most of these inscriptions are in the Safavitic and Hismaic scripts, which were used primarily in southern Syria, Jordan, and the most northern parts of modern Saudi Arabia. But even so, the Arabic we find in these texts are sometimes a bit different from the Arabic that we know in its classical form. These differences have led some scholars to argue that this language shouldn't be categorized as Arabic, but as one form of the wider group known as Ancient North Arabian. For example, one of the most distinguishing features of Arabic is its use of the definite article al, as in al-Kitab, meaning the book, or al-Quran, meaning the Quran. But the majority of Safavitic and Hismaic inscriptions instead use the definite article ha, similar to in Hebrew. Like in the following example, quote, Li Hamlet bin Salim halest, which means by Hamlet, son of Salim, the bandit. So we can see that the particular characteristic form of Arabic, the definite article al, doesn't really appear in most of the inscriptions, even though there are examples of that too. And this has led some scholars to say that that shouldn't be considered Arabic. But again, if we accept the less narrow view of language and recognize that languages change and that they are diverse and varied, and also look at all the other similarities to Arabic that we find in these inscriptions, I think it's safe to say that this is, in some ways at least, an earlier form of that language.
Yeah, again, if you use English for example, right? With that logic, I mean, English started out as a German dialect. Like, if you look at German articles, it looks a lot different from English articles, somewhat. Like die, das, der. But in English, you just have the. Which, technically speaking, it's the. The is actually pronounced as the. But nobody realizes that. The. Which obviously is the German D, right? But it looks different. It looks different, and it's spelled a bit differently, and it's pronounced a bit differently. So no, there's a reason for that. I'm not gonna explain here because this video isn't really about English, but I'm just giving an example of why that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, like you said, languages can change and whatnot. So it's it's literally. Like, no, that's basic common sense.
So that's the general picture in the earliest period. Arabic appears in northern Arabia, written by people who were most likely referred to as Arabs, as Arab, either by themselves or by others, and this language was written in various different scripts in the region, including Safaetic, Hismaic, and even Greek, for example. And sometime after this period,
Wow, Arabic was written in Greek? What? Now this is mind-blowing to me.
It seems that the Arabic language started to spread southward into the Arabian Peninsula. It is in the first couple of centuries AD that we see the first examples of the word Arab being used in southern Arabia, although at the same time there is no evidence that the Arabic language was spoken here until really the post-Islamic period. So with this general picture in mind, the natural follow-up question is, well, okay, the Arabic language seemed to exist in northern Arabia, but when did the Arabic script appear? And when did Arabic, the language, take the form that we know it as today? And to answer those questions, it's time to talk about one of the most important factors in the development of the Arabic language. That is the Nabateans. The Nabatean kingdom was an Arab state that ruled in northern Arabia and the southern Levant from the 3rd century BC to the 1st century AD, when it was annexed by the Romans. The Nabateans were a rich and flourishing culture that built magnificent cities and monuments. They are most famous for their capital city, Petra, in modern-day Jordan, which was a major point in trade routes across the Middle East in antiquity. Now, the Nabateans spoke Arabic as their everyday language, the kind of Arabic that we can see in the ancient inscriptions, which I have talked about, varied as it was. But for all their official documents and business correspondences, they used Aramaic, the kind of lingua franca of the region at the time, and wrote this Aramaic in a unique script. Now, what happens here is that we see over the course of time how the Nabatean script, primarily used to write Aramaic, gradually started to be used to write Arabic. After the Nabateans were conquered by the Romans and their kingdom ended as such, people still continued to write in the Nabatean script. And when we look at this script, especially as it develops and changes during the first couple of centuries AD, we see a script that really starts to resemble the later Arabic script. Take a look at these Nabatean inscriptions from the early 4th century, for example. And once we move even further forward into history, we can see how the evolving Nabatean script not only is used further south in Arabia, it is spreading as a script used to write, it's becoming more popular across the peninsula, but also how it becomes a script for writing the Arabic language proper, and that by around the late 5th century or early 6th century, we finally have examples of the Arabic that we all know so well, both in style and in script. There is, for example, the famous Haran inscription from 568 AD. But notice how late this is in history.
Yeah, I was literally thinking, I was like, that is very extremely late, brother in Christ.
By the time we get a complete Arabic language and script, we are only about a century before the life of the Prophet Muhammad. Now, that isn't to say that Arabic didn't exist prior to this, as we have seen. We have seen that Arabic did exist, but that it evolved and changed and existed in various different forms. It is really only this form of the language that had developed by the early 6th century that was later canonized into an official classical Arabic. But given the fact that we've seen Arabic and the language evolve so much over the centuries and the millennia, how come that this particular form was the one that survived? And this is, of course, where the religion of Islam makes its very dramatic entrance. As we all know, the Quran is in Arabic. Being God's word and divine revelation, according to Muslims, its contents had immediate sacred status. It was important for reciters and readers of the Quran to be able to pronounce and understand it properly and to safeguard the language that it contains. It is for this reason that we see grammarians in the post-Islamic period starting to create a system of grammar, linguistic rules, and other technical aspects of the language. When it comes to the Arabic script in particular, the situation is similar. The earliest manuscripts of the Quran did not contain any short vowels. It basically only had consonants. The short vowels of the Arabic language, known as fatha, kasra, and damma, and corresponds to the sounds.
Bro, I wish languages were like that. You know how much more simpler languages would be if they didn't have any freaking vowels, bro? Oh my goodness.
A, I, and U, respectively, was developed in the centuries after the Quran was written down or had been revealed in order to fix its pronunciation and meaning, since small vowel differences can change the meaning of words and whole sentences. So in a lot of ways, the Quran is the primary source for the classical Arabic language. It was the Quran and its language that determined what became official Arabic and has served as its kind of gold standard ever since. Through the Quran, the post-Islamic Arabs took a language that was diverse and evolving and created a system of grammar that remains basically identical today. Anyone who understands Standard Arabic or Fusha can pick up the Quran and read it without any major things like this. So the arrival of the religion of Islam played a central and important role in the development of the Arabic language, which is also what justifies me.
Bro, I know people who can read the Quran, but they don't know how to speak Arabic. Like, I remember there was this one Turkish lady who fancied me, who used to like me. Oh, there's a lot of women that used to like me, to be honest, but no, this one Turkish lady who used to like me, I was like trying to get to know her and whatnot, and she said she can freaking read the Quran, but she can't speak Arabic. Like, what? And I came to realize and find out that she was not the only one. Like, there's a lot of people like that who can read the Quran, but they can't speak Arabic. Like, how in the world is that possible? You have a whole book in Arabic, written in freaking Arabic. How can you not speak the language? Like, what? Is there not enough words in the Quran for you to not be able to speak Arabic? Like, what? I never really understood that logic, to be honest with you. Like, whatever.
Making a video about it on this channel. We can also, of course, see how this event, the Prophet Muhammad and the revelation of the Quran, affected the geographical spread of the language as well. It seems that it was only after the Prophet Muhammad and his successors had unified Arabia into a unified state that we see the Arabic language being adopted universally across the peninsula. It may even be after this fact that the whole identity of Arab became a universal point of identification for people in this region. And
all right, so yeah, okay, I like to bring this up whenever I like to say stuff like whenever we talk about Germanic peoples and whatnot, or like Slavic peoples or whatnot. I'm like, bro, because I see a lot of people who just do not understand his logic. Brother in Christ, all right. I mean, Arabs didn't really view themselves as one up until, like he said, up until recently, of course, bro. But like, they're still the same people, even if they did not view themselves as, like, politically speaking, as one whole. They're still the same people, right? The same can literally be said, bro. I mean, that's why there's literally pan-Arabism, right? That freaking dream that will never happen of the Arab world uniting, because that's a whole different thing that I can honestly talk about. But that's why you have pan-Arabism, right? Like, let's all be one country because we're all the same pretty much, and we all should unite or whatever. It's the same thing, bro. Like, I see all these people, like Dutch people, Danish people, Swedish people, Norwegian people, English people, freaking Germans, bro. They all love to say, I'm this, I'm that. They all like to try and feel so special and unique. Like, no, you're the same. You're all German. Really and truly, I should more accurately say you're all Scandinavian, because all Germanic people came from Scandinavia. Southern Sweden, more like, and Denmark area, right before they started spreading out. They all, just like Arabic people, they all could communicate with each other and whatnot, right? I mean, and it's like, it's just like, dude, it's like, you're the same, bro. Like, the same logic with Arab people, you could literally apply the same logic with German people. You're only called German is because that's just a term that was just used to describe all of you people, right? So that we know, like, who, like, it's just basic common sense, dude. Like, come on. Like, even if the word German wasn't used to describe you people, you still would be the same people. The same thing with Arabic people. If the word Arabic wouldn't be used to describe, these people, they all still would be the same people, bro. Like, come on now. Oh my goodness gracious me. And they get so angry, bro. I swear, they get so angry too when you, like, pointing out, like, freaking Germanic people. Oh my goodness, like, they'll literally fume because they just do not like to hear the fact that they're freaking German, or like they're the same people. It's ridiculous. Like, no, I hate how freaking, like, Western Europeans always try to, like, they just have this freaking superiority. I'm special and nobody else isn't complex, and that's annoying as hell, bro. Like, you'll see these people just go and be like, oh yeah, you're just Arabic, or oh yeah, you're just Slavic, or whatever group, right? But you go look at them, right, and be like, oh, you're just Germanic. They'll, like, lose their minds, bro. Right? Lose their minds. Now, when I say Western Europeans, I'm talking about Western Europeans that are from Germanic countries, right? I mean, oh my goodness, bro. Like, Arabic, like, we call them Arabic because they're Arabs, right? We call people Germanic because they're German. Like, come on now. Like, I say this a lot in my videos, but I swear I will never ever, because I argue with so much people in my comments about this, bro. And it's like, I do not care what you say. I don't care. I will do anything in my power to dispel that stupid freaking Western European superiority. I need to be special. Freaking complex that they have is absolutely ridiculous, man. All right, let's continue.
And of course, with the later conquest of the Rashidun and Umayyad caliphates, the geographical spread of Arabic became even more significant. It is said that it was the Umayyad Caliph Abdul Malik who made Arabic the official language of the empire, thus beginning the process that created the situation as it stands today, with Arabic being spoken as a primary language across the Middle East, North Africa, and in the Middle Ages in southern Spain. But despite this systematization of the Arabic language and its script, as well as its official use across the empire, it seems that some of the native languages and scripts that were used in pre-Islamic periods in Arabia continued to exist and perhaps also be used for a while afterwards, a couple of centuries in the post-Islamic period. Thus, even though the Quranic Arabic became widespread as an official Arabic, the assimilation was a gradual one, even in the heart of the peninsula. Of course, the linguistic map is diverse today just as it was in antiquity, and Arabic, as most of you probably know, is spoken in a variety of different dialects across the Arabic-speaking world, to the point that a person from Iraq often has a very hard time understanding someone from Morocco and vice versa. But the official Arabic of the Quran, the liturgical language of Islam and official language of the early caliphates, remain in what is known as Fusha, or Standard Arabic. This is a form of the language that basically everyone learns in school, at least in Arabic-speaking countries. Some newspapers use Fusha in their papers. Poetry is written in it, and some news channels like Al Jazeera also use it, but it's never really spoken in everyday conversation. Still, the fact that Fusha has survived even to this day.
So basically, it's like how in Barbados we are taught how to speak King's English. We are taught how to speak King's English, but you go and listen to Barbadians speak. We don't talk to each other in King's English. We just use our dialect of English. Some people say it's a language. Some people say it's not a language. I don't really care. But yeah, you know, it's like, it's funny because Barbadians can, like, they can talk like how British people speak, like the whole proper English thing. It's kind of like a whole stupid debate on whether or not, like, we should be taught like that, because some people just cannot stop crying about my colonialism, my relic of colonialism. We shouldn't be speaking like this. Like, bro, be quiet. Like, everywhere has a place, like, has a standard way of speaking, okay? Because, you know, obviously we need a way for people to understand each other, obviously, right? And that's the thing, that the way how you hear me speak in my videos, like, that is me sort of speaking in King's English. Like, that's me sort of speaking my King's English tone. Although I kind of mix it with my American accent sometimes. Some days I just talk more my American accent. Other days I just, you know, talk more my King's English tone that I've been taught how to speak, right? So, yeah, I don't know. It just kind of reminds me of that. Although I don't, like, go all the way. I never really, like, felt the need to go all the way. Freaking talking like a posh person. Like, don't get me wrong, like, yes, they teach us to speak like that and whatnot, but I never really, like, felt the need to, like, I never ever, it's rare for me to go up. If I'm talking to an American person, I have to, like, speak like that. I only ever do that in, like, extremely formal situations, like really, really formal, or if I'm talking to foreign women, keeping it real with you, or if I have, like, a job interview, or I have something important. That is when I, like, turn my King's English tone, like, all the way, because oh my goodness gracious me. But yeah, you're not really gonna, like, hear me talking like that, even though I can. Yeah, it just reminds me of that, right? But again, you won't really hear Barbadians ever, like, I mean, yo, if you go to Barbados, right? If you go to Barbados, or you just Google, like, or listen to someone from Barbados speak, definitely, we all sound British. We all do sound British. I've always hear people say, like, naturally, like, whenever we naturally talk, you know, they're always, oh, you sound like you're from the UK, right? You sound Irish, you sound Scottish, or you sound English, right? Because we all have different, like, accents down there. But you know, that's just, again, a product of us, you know, just being a colony of the UK. But I'm talking, like, actual proper King's English talking. Like, we would sound like what this, like stereotypical, how people imagine, like, the stereotypical British accent, right? Like, when you think of a British person talking, right? Like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right. I'm not really gonna talk like that, like, all the way here, but I partially do it on my videos. I mean, I'm partially doing it like right now for you to understand. But yeah, I never really do it all the way, like unless I'm trying to like raise up some like women or something. And then, oh my god, I love your voice. Oh, your voice is so cool. Yeah. Oh, the only time you really hear me talking like that is when I say the word what, like what, like water or whatever, or you know, that type of stuff. You know, that's when you really hear it come out. But when I'm talking to somebody, I don't really say what. I mean, sometimes I do. We do. But it's more if I'm talking like in my dialect with my family or something. I'm more like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? But if I'm talking to someone from, I'm like, what do you mean by that, right? Or but if I'm talking to just someone casually, like my family or something, I'm like, what do you mean by that, right? So yeah. All right, let's continue.
Even though its modern standard Arabic form has a lot of loan words and innovations to it, the core aspect of language survives pretty much intact, which shows you the central importance and role played by the Quran and the religion of Islam for the general development of the whole Arabic language.
Don't do it!
In this episode, we have gone on a journey from antiquity up until the modern day. We have seen how the Arabic language started in the northern parts of Arabia, probably being spoken here and also written in various different alphabets and scripts, including Hismaic, Safaetic, and even scripts like the Greek script. It then spread further.
I'm still surprised by that fact.
South into the Arabian Peninsula as far as places like Hijaz, and gradually became more widespread in the region and just more popular as a language. We also saw how the Nabatean kingdom and their official script that was used to write administrative documents in Aramaic gradually became used to write the Arabic language even after the Nabatean kingdom ended, and that as it developed over the first few centuries AD, this script eventually became what we know as the Arabic script today. Finally, we saw that by the 6th century, the final quote-unquote form of Arabic had developed. A form of Arabic that was expressed in the sacred scripture of Islam and thus canonized and, you could say, frozen into its classical form, even if it always continues to evolve, of course. Clearly then, Arabic is a language that has a long and deep history. Its mysterious yet fascinating origins can help us better appreciate the ways that it persists even today, remaining one of the most widely spoken and significant languages in the world. I hope you liked this video. If you want to support this channel and its attempts to give you free and scholarly content about the world's different religious traditions, you can support us on Patreon through a monthly donation or through a one-time donation on PayPal. You are also...
Look at all those Patreon. I wish I had Patreon supporters. Oh well, it is what it is. All right, you made it all the way to the end of the video. If you have any suggestions for me, go comment it down below, of course. Another wonderful reaction done by yours truly. I'm like arguably, debatably, like one of the best reactors in this freaking niche slash genre. Anyways, go like the video and make sure you subscribe if you're new, because I want my channel to stay on the YouTube algorithm. All right, see ya, folks. Bye bye.